Hi, folks. Welcome back. These are the streams. I'm just going to rebrand these as game surgeries because I think Indies Under the Knife is a bit confusing for new folks. But these are the streams where I play work in progress games that you guys send in. Thank you so much for sending your games in. All last year, I think I covered at least 100, maybe closer to 200. Some weeks there's like 4 games come through, sometimes less. Today we're going to be looking at a game called Feudums, which I've been sent and I wasn't really aware of before. And I think this is an interesting one. I've given it a full stream to itself because it is a longer strategy game. And I think sometimes you just need a bit longer to get your teeth into it. And to be quite honest, getting back into streaming at the start of the new year after quite a tumultuous holiday period where I was moving house and dealing with stressful family stuff, it's quite nice to just go into playing a game that kind of looks reasonably polished and like I'm going to have a good time with it for a couple of hours. So sometimes in the other streams we play a bunch of little games and talk about them, think about the game design, think about the creative direction, all of that kind of stuff that an indie game needs to be good. And sometimes if I really like one of those games and I want to play it for longer, I'll kind of pick it out and do a longer stream on it. But this one I'm going into relatively blind, don't know much about this. It is a 4X grand strategy type game. It is a kind of Crusader Kings type thing. I really like the look of it. It kind of... The way that all of this is presented to me from an art point of view, this is like a slightly more cutesy and casual Crusader Kings or Civ, and the presentation looks more like something like Kingdom Rush. It's got that sort of slightly softer cartoony thing, but it looks like there's going to be some depth here. So I'm going to stumble through the tutorial, and just to get the message from the dev up, I don't always have time to read these, but we'll see what this one says. Feudums is an ambitious passion project I've been working on for over 10 years. It's an online, persistent multiplayer game on a tiny indie budget, completely self-funded with zero pay to win now and forever. Yeah, I mean, the thing about pay to win is it's quite hard to insert later on. Your game has to be designed around it, and if it was pay to win, I wouldn't be showing it on the channel anyway. If it was free to play premium with in-app purchases, I would be showing it on the channel because in my mind that is taking us outside of what an indie game is to indie gamers, really. While the vision is mine, the game is really for its community. Development is fully transparent. 35 playable updates, 370 public test worlds to date, and I've implemented hundreds of player-suggested changes over the years. Even the major feature priorities are decided directly through player polls. That's really interesting, hearing the dev talk about that. It's Matt. Matt talking about that, because it's really kind of getting across this idea of a game designer as a sort of servant to a particular community. And obviously when you're new and you're sort of scrabbling for playtesters, it's very easy to take too much of it to heart and think like everyone's feedback is really important. And what you actually are trying to do often is find out who your game is for and then take that specific group of people's feedback. Sorry, I just need to plug something in. But, you know, you hear these horror stories about people that have spent 10 years working on a game, and there's a very different vibe to working on a game for 10 years and not showing it to anyone versus working on a game for 10 years where you are actively kind of co-creating it with your audience, which is a very, very different sort of thing. I often think about playtesting as, you know, like if you were to paint a picture, you don't just stand at the easel putting paint on the picture the entire time. You are stepping back, looking at the picture, thinking about it, erasing parts, spending time like looking at what you're doing, looking at the subject matter you're painting, or thinking about it if you're doing it from memory. You don't spend all of your time actually applying the paint to the brush. And in game design, we're sort of dealing with a second order problem because we're not just trying to make something that feels fun to us, we're trying to make something that feels fun to someone else. So the equivalent of stepping back and looking at the painting in game design is playtesting, right? It's not like something you magically remove the need for, the better you get at game design or something. And the people that sort of develop for a very long time without doing much playtesting are often kind of kidding themselves, I think. Insert coin.
Now fallen and grown cold, a lord lay crushed beneath that wheel, who turning to me.
You know what? Two very weird decisions straight off. Using the phrase insert coin at the start of a game is quite confusing, and then hitting me with a song with lyrics straight off the bat, so I can't talk over it very easily, is very interesting as well. I'm just going to turn the audio down because I find that I find it quite difficult to think about words while someone is singing in words because I want to hear the words. It's why I can't like write with music on if it's got vocals in. Okay. Help build the world you will rule. Current phase. All of this interface is beautiful. There's some really good typography choices here. You can see they've really thought about like how to highlight particular pieces of information and how to break it all up. Very clear roadmap of what the developer is doing as well. Okay, I need to join the noble house. Am I actually going to be able to play? It says it's persistent multiplayer. Work with or against other noble houses online. I mean, this is fine as a sort of dry run. I mean, I get a coat of arms maker, so even if I can't get into the main game, I'm quite happy with that. Look at that, that's gorgeous. Right, how do I confirm that? Oh, they're over here. I see. Maybe this isn't where we're supposed to start off, but if you put a coat of arms generator in your game, I'm gonna want to mess around with it straight away. So I want a baker and a weaver on my thing, really. That's what my two names are. Ah, these are locked. So this is where you do your, I imagine, so if this is like running like a games as service game, right? Because it's persistent multiplayer. So I imagine some of these locked things you sort of have to earn, which is neat. The reason why games do that, even if they don't have like gachas and pay to win mechanics, the reason why games do that is so that you have a reason to play regularly, because games that are online specific are very sensitive to the network effect, which is the idea that the value of a network to its users goes up or down depending on how many other people are on a network, right? So an online game becomes more attractive to other gamers if there are more people in it. And it's not just peer pressure, it's all of the technical stuff as well, of like matchmaking is better if you have more people in your game, all of those sorts of things. It's the same as like dating apps. If you were to download a dating app and there were only 12 people within a 100-mile radius on that dating app, the dating app isn't as functional to you as a dating app. It's exactly the same with games. So the reason why games as service games do this thing of like gradually unlocking cosmetics It's not just to sell you stuff in Fortnite. Even in a game with no in-app purchases or pay-to-win stuff, they need a way of like drip feeding rewards. Otherwise, people won't be online enough, and the game will kind of fall apart. So that's why we get these kind of things. Are you sure? Right. How do I respond to it? Are you sure? I just gotta. Right. I think I'm gonna have to make a coat of arms. Sorry, folks. There's a. It's sort of adamant that I can't just get straight into playing the game. Just give me a shield with an animal on it. You click and drag it left and right. Okay. Is there a spider on there? I want a spider or a basket. Because web is like a Anglo-Saxon name for a weaver. When we talk about a spider's web, we're actually talking about its weaving. But web for a spider's web and the web as in the internet are the only sort of remaining version of that term as a noun. But the surname web basically just means weaver. But you don't have a weaver emblem. So I'm going to review bomb this channel, this game now. I'm going to say there was no spider. I wanted to put a spider on my shield. And there wasn't one. I like that. Look at that. That's a great emblem. Who out here? Who up late praising their son? I'm just going to go with that one because it amuses me. They've done a really good job of choosing medieval sounding names for the colours. Right? This is... We're not even in the game yet, which some of you will find frustrating, but we're not even in the game yet. And already we've got this beautifully medieval interface. And even stuff to do with like the language of colours in this menu. You've got gules. You've got Carnation, Brunatra, Blue Celeste. So you've got all of Amaranth. All of these, like, they're not like the obvious terms for these colours. They're picked to be like what a kind of medieval person would use for these terms. Okay, make sure your design is valid. Okay. Set. Very, very confusing to have the confirmation step up in the top left. So I'm saving that coat of arms, and now I'm going back. And it's saying, are you sure? And then I click on, are you sure, to say I'm sure. It's not very clear. There's some, like, the UI is beautiful, but some of the UX decisions are very confusing. Usually, we put the confirmation step on the right-hand side at the bottom, because that's where your eye finishes on the screen. So the, like, confirm is usually down there. In a right to left language, it's in the bottom left. If you can't choose, you put it in the middle. But top left, strangest place to have a confirmation step or a kind of okay. We're getting into really boring UX stuff very early on, but it jumps out and I need to comment on it as it comes up. Let's go and see Online Worlds. Petty Kingdoms. Your noble house does not have any presence in the region. How dare you? Who do you think you are to come in here and say that about my noble house? My house name is missing. What do you mean? Are you sure? So I would put confirm question mark. You click on confirm and then you're confirming. Whereas the question, are you sure, sort of suggests there should be another button that says yes or no. Right?
On fortune's wheel I saw them turn.
Pending changes. Click here to reload the profile. The thing you've got working for you here is that the audience for this game is basically Crusader Kings fans who want to play a persistent online version of that game. And that means that they are going to be very, very tolerant of complicated interfaces. So if you're looking at all this and thinking, oh, that's really daunting, then bear in mind the audience for 4X strategy games are probably the most tolerant of UI overload because of the type of game that they play. I'm a 4X wimp. My favourite one is Age of Wonders, which is not as hardcore as something like Crusader Kings. Right. Running into me. What am I doing? The feature is still making. This feature is still in the making. Okay. I'm just going to press join game. Gonna be called Binklebonk. Baroness Binklebonk. Sure. Do not use any. I don't know what this is. I don't know what this category is, but I'm not going to use any of it. And I'm going to land on one of these generated place names. They're very convincingly sort of medieval Europe and Scandinavian sounding place names. But we're going to call it Croydon because that's funny to me. The house name is House Missing because it's a really big fan of that Everything But the Girl song from the 90s, which is called Missing. There we go. Sorry, I turned my mic up a bit. It's lower than it would usually be. There we go. Haha. I'm glad the stream reconnected. I've worked out how to make that fix without having to shut down the stream now, which is apparently to disconnect everything from Streamlabs and reconnect, and then it has a chance of reconnecting to the stream. So there's nothing in Streamlabs to indicate when it's disconnected, so I have to see you guys in the chat. Let me know, and then I'll disconnect and reconnect again. Here we go. Here's Croydon. Gosh, this art is beautiful. Look at them. So they have maps like this in Kingdom Come Deliverance and menus like this. And there it's kind of, it's funny because you have this realistic 3D game and then you go into the menus and it's all this kind of thing. But this is so pretty. So we can zoom out another layer and then we get a more abstracted map where we can see, okay, there's forests, there's mountains. That looks like a desert. Desert next to Croydon. I've got... This looks like a unit queue like you would get in Civ. I'll just check that there's not like some sort of tutorial I should play for before I try and do this. I don't think there is. Okay. I'll go back into my online world. It's very, very hard to remember how any of these buttons work.
Fortune's wheel, I saw them turn, the kings and lords of old, who power sought and grim was fought, now fallen.
See, I think even though this is an online game, I should be able to just tinker around with the basic town building bit of it even if there's no other player in it, right? Which is kind of what I care about at this stage, because I want to see what the basic mechanics of just building stuff and moving around are, even if there's not another player in the game. But the thing is, like, I don't know, I have quite a long history with these games. I played a lot of, well, a few of the Civs. I played pretty much all of the Age of Wonders games. I played a little bit of Crusader Kings, and I never really played them as multiplayer games because just like the organizational aspect of that does my head in. I don't feel like a human adds that much. What's over here? So I click on Croydon. These are the kind of employees they have. Chopping wood year-round, consumes nothing, produces timber. Food. There's a bit of a... I don't like the... Like, why are we showing me a paragraph of text and then immediately moving it up and showing something underneath? That feels quite bad. It's got a little loading thing that says hover for details, but it means that you can't read the text as soon as it comes up. Because the whole thing is moving, right? So the way that that box should work is that when you hover, the word timber comes up in the right place. And then when the stuff loads in under it, the word timber stays where it is. Like the box loads under and folds out. Because otherwise your eye goes to it to start reading it, and then it moves up, right? It's not a good experience. But these are just the kind of things that someone will pick up on if they're not super invested in your game and haven't been looking at it for 10 years. Right. Wood. Food. It's very hard to know what to do with a game like this when it doesn't seem to have a tutorial, because I'm just going to be like zooming around reading tooltips. And I can't see which of these are things I can actually do. Like these are numbers. How do I set someone as a forager? Very difficult with a... Well, I don't know if it is basically single player, because there was an option of like how many people are you going to have on the map. So I think I am basically on a multiplayer map that hasn't loaded any other players in yet. But that's not even the issue I'm having, really. The issue I'm having at this stage is like, what am I supposed to click on here to do anything? The last time I did, I clicked on here and I had a thing that said town guards. And I thought, okay, this is basically Civ. I produce town guards and I can then send them out and they can do stuff. But yeah, it's very hard to get to the point where I can see what you can interact with. Like, I've got lots of information, as per normal 4X. I love this kind of way that you've got the... Selecting the tile has this God rays on it thing. It's quite fun. Maybe needs to be a bit clearer which tile it's on, because if I click that one, sort of is also highlighting the thing behind it. Yeah, it's just kind of like I've got access to a database, but the game mechanics are completely opaque to me because we haven't had a tutorial. And you know what? Like, I think this is kind of a lesson in like what you do as a process when you're introducing people to your game. Not necessarily in the game itself, but like sending it to a content creator, because I'm actually quite a big fan of the idea that you shouldn't make a tutorial too early, because you should get people to play the game, see how they engage with it, see what they intuitively grasp and what is less intuitive, and then build the tutorial around that knowledge. So I don't think you should have a tutorial too early, but this has been sent to me with no explanation of how to engage with it, and the things I would expect from a 4X game, I just can't see it. And I guess it's kind of real time as well because it's online, so which is a shame, because I set aside a lot of time to play this, even if it was just going to be like messing around in a single player map with no opponents on. I can't do anything. There's no quick golden path to just being able to do anything. This is like my first experience of Crusader Kings, but much worse, because the reason my Crusader Kings experience was bad was because I skipped through the tutorial really quickly, whereas here it's just that there isn't one. And there's just so much information here, and there doesn't seem to be a very clear... Like, it's all beautiful. Like, this interface design is beautiful, but there's nothing that's like drawing me to it as like this is something you can directly interact with now. So it feels a bit like a diorama, because I can't really work out what I can do as a player. Like, even if I don't understand the strategy I'm supposed to be carrying out, I just can't find where the actions are that I can do. So I've got some economic stuff here about what jobs people are doing, which is really neat. Like, for me, as a sort of medieval simulation thing, the idea of just looking at a town and going, here's all the stuff that's in the town. They've got a bard, you know, this town's grown really big, we can afford to have a bard now. That kind of stuff's neat, because it's kind of a game like The Settlers, but condensed onto one tile. But the way that I can interact with any of this or affect it is just completely hidden from me at the offset. Right, the in-game guide. Here we go. I think just forcing that open at the start, because I just didn't see that. Okay. Yeah, I don't need to know about the interface. That's all typical of this type of game. Things will happen even when you're not playing. Every tick represents a turn and will vary in length from game to game. You see the remaining time of the current tick in the top middle. Okay, this is the tick length. So that's a turn in the game, but they're calling it a tick because it's automatic. That makes sense to me. Every game has a maximum number of turns. You can find more information in the top right corner. 770. Okay, that's a good idea because it forces things to end and not go on forever. When you started a game, you have protection called a grace period, while you look around and get used to the interface. There are 2 of these. Both are granted... Yeah, well, okay. Each tile... Yeah. Why do I need to know about the coordinates of them? So again, you're telling me about all the information and how I can get the information. I want to know what I can do. Like, even in a very complex strategic game like this, I want to start by doing stuff and stumbling into a mistake and then like having to preload all this information into my brain. A lot of what we've seen here is already like, I can learn what these things are by clicking around. It's not getting me to the point where I'm onboarded into what I'm actually doing with my turn. Many tooltips have 2 states. If you simply hover over an item, the tooltip will display a basic tip. But if you hold your hand a little longer, it will display an expanded state with... This is exactly what I spoke about a moment ago. It gives you about half a second to read the basic state, and then the expanded state comes in and pushes the basic state up the screen, so you wouldn't have been able to read it even if you could read really, really fast. Once a military company, a garrison or feudum tile is selected, use the commands panel on the right hand side to give orders. Okay, that's what this is. So you can queue up commands, so you can like map out a line for units to move and stuff. Okay, let's close this for a minute and see. See if we can get anywhere. I still didn't get. I went through pages and pages of that, and there was nothing that was like, click here and do this to get a unit. I was really hoping today would be more of a, this game works, let's just get on with it and play a game. But I think what we're experiencing here is, this is a game that is probably excellent if you understand how it works, and it's been developed with that community who are sort of super hardcore early adopters of this type of game, and it doesn't have onboarding of the nature I would require to be able to get into this, which is, here is how to move stuff around in the game and actually take actions as a player, now learn by failing, right? It's trying to preload me with all of this information, and most of the information we got in that guide was telling us where other information is, and it's like, I don't need to. I'm going to learn this as I play this game. I would gradually learn all of these things by using the tooltips. I don't need to be told what a tooltip is. I need to be told what I'm doing, how I do it, what actions I can take, and how I do them. You don't need to tell me how to access a tooltip. They're automatic. It happens anyway. And like, I can gradually float around this interface and learn all of these things and then go to the guide. But you're trying to preload me with all that information, and that's just not going to work. Maybe there are certain types of player that are so into this game they will sit there and they will read that manual, but it just doesn't work for me. I need to pretty quickly get to the point where I am taking actions and making decisions. And I'm still not equipped with that, even after stepping through all of that. So, we've gone through commands, which is talking about military commands, but I don't have any military units. And I don't know how to make any. And, which is weird, because the first time I opened the map, I had a way of doing that. Okay, some starting advice. Most players, when they start, elect to build a farm, increase the size of their hamlet, or build an ecclesiastical thief. Thank you, Curious Dynamics. But again, yeah, I just don't know how I would do any of these things. Because if I click on any of the bits of terrain... Ah, here we go. Buildable improvements. That's an ecclesiastical thief. That is a community in which for people to live, which would be a... So, these ones are... I see. Okay, so we have like an empty hex here, right? That can be developed into something. And these ones are already things. So this has an empty buildable improvements thing. And this one has a choice. So we can make a clergy thing. Over here. Okay, that's not an action button either. So we can't do anything with that. There is a good spot on the stand that could be used to build something. Okay, how do I action that? Oh dear. It's beautiful, yeah. This I really, really want to like this. And I think I probably would once I learn how to do it, but click on the forest tile. So we can claim land that's not in our kingdom. Lay claim, there we go. Okay. We can bid for it, but there's no one else around, so I guess we don't need to. We can just say, I'm claiming that. And that's going to process for 2 ticks, which are going to take a couple of minutes each, I think. Let's just be reckless and see if we can claim 2 things at once. That's actually... Can I cancel that? I don't want that. I want the forest. I lay claim to the forest, for it is mine, and also the lake. I will claim this lake. Thank you for the live guide pasting, Curious Dynamics. I really think the way that the onboarding in this game works needs to just be like, do this, do this, do this, and then people will learn. Explaining how a system works rather than getting a player to engage with it through mechanics is never a good idea. I think you can hint at the system, but you're doing that in order to appeal to the sense of, look, there's this cool stuff that you're going to engage with eventually. You're not giving people the information, all of the information they need up front in order to actually make deep decisions in that system. Your onboarding should be, do this. At some point, you're going to do this in this way. Now do this. At some point, you're going to do this. And I know that there are certain genres, like city builders and 4X games, where there is a sort of perception that, yeah, but this is for like really intelligent gamers, so they don't need that. All gamers need that. All gamers need, you know, this is a very, I don't have many kind of universal game design opinions, but I do think onboarding into a game should be just getting you doing the player actions as quickly as possible and slowly drip feeding the broader context. Not giving the broader context up front. You give the kind of stakes of the broader context, like the story stakes of like, oh, our kingdom is gonna be doomed if this, that, or the other, but not like loads of information about stuff that I can't even actually engage with yet. Not good, I don't think. And again, your early adopters are going to be nerds for the type of game that you're making, right? So they're going to be the people that show up in your Discord, read a guide, are happy to read a guide, and then ask you questions about how to do the thing, but you're not always going to be there to explain the thing. Right, so we've got all of these things over here. And we can, it says that we can assign laborers to do different things during a tick. So I've got, but clicking on these doesn't do anything. As far as I can tell. What have we got here? Laborer designation. Certain terrains or improvement types may provide labor opportunities which are mutually exclusive in nature. Okay, so this is happening automatically. This isn't something I have direct control over. But I can click on a territory and designate what kind of work that I want there. Okay, I'm getting it now. Most of the things we can do are on these tiles down the right-hand side. That's what I needed to know. These are the action buttons, basically. So if this was a board game, and I was looking at the board, and I knew I had a little player card in front of me and said, these are the actions you can take on your turn. You can move, you can do this, you can do this. These are the actual actions that I can do things within the world. Everything on the left is just information. There isn't really anything on this panel that I click in order to change the state of something. And, like, I'm designating... In this area, I mostly want people cutting wood, and then they do their own thing and self-organize. That all makes total sense now that I know it. But, yeah, it's just not so clear to me. Like, I guess there's stuff in the interface where it's not always clear to me what's, like, passive and there for information, and what is a kind of interactive button. And these... Now that I know that these are the action buttons, it's a bit clearer that that's what these are for. These are for actually choosing what you're doing with your turn. But it just wasn't super clear. Right, so we're gonna do I click on that hex. I do construct improvement. I can choose which of these things to build. We can give it to the clergy. We can have a farm. We can build a hamlet. We can build a palisade, like a military fortification. I'm gonna build a fief like I was advised to by my very, very wise advisor in the chat. Curious Dynamics in the chat. My very, very wise advisor who has gone far and wide seeking out tomes of law to explain how I am to rule my kingdom. Honestly, all I needed as a tutorial was a big flashing thing that says, here's the stuff you can do, it's over here. Click on a tile, and then the stuff you can do is over here. Even just like, I don't know, make these buttons like red or dark blue or some sort of contrast color so that my eye is drawn to them, and then I understand that, okay, this is basically an information binder about my town. It doesn't have any direct interactions on it. These are the buttons, you know? So we've got a minute left of this tick. I'm going to go over to these woods. What have I got? I can create a feudum. Do some worker designation. So we've got woodwards who are like forest rangers, basically. They stop people poaching the game. We've got hunters. Got woodcutters. That's the labor designation is happening there. So there is our... No, actually... I'm gonna... We're gonna bias a little bit towards woodcutters to start off with, because it just seems like that's what I would need. So we've got a laser... We've got... Our first tick is going to be building a ecclesiastical fief over there. Or 14 ticks that will take. So that's going to take like half an hour to build that. Then over here, we're basically telling people, these woods is for chopping. These woods is for chopping. Go out there, get me some wood. And see, now I know, now I've actually queued some stuff. I feel more inclined to just look around at the information in the game, because I know I'm not wasting my time, because I should be queuing up an action before I start. It feels a bit arse backwards, because a game is something you do, and reading an entire manual before playing a game feels very, very like it's 1995 and you've just bought Dungeon Keeper and the manual is this thick and you're not allowed to go on the computer for a couple of hours anyway, so you're going to just sit and read the manual and your parents won't care because it's reading. You know? Oh, Peter Molyneux. We got there. We should get like a special badge that says I managed to interact with a hexagon. I'm gonna make one while the tick is happening. Give me a second. Please enjoy this relaxing medieval Enya music. anything happened. Anything exciting happened while I was away? I'm just gonna... This is turning into an arts and crafts stream now. It's the problem with these kind of games. You need a side activity to do. I do think there is something about pacing in this type of game, of having it on a time limit for turns, which is quite interesting, because when I play 4X games where it's you just basically press space to end your turn, I end up just bashing through loads of turns very, very quickly. And there might be something better about the pacing of this. So I've got the tiny hexagon. I'm just gonna make myself a badge. I need to send off my commands. Oh, thank you, Royal Advisor. I've sent them in, so that just locks in the stuff at the top. Maybe we lost a tick there. Here we go. I've got it. There we go. This should be a Steam achievement for this game. It says, I interacted with a hexagon. That should be the first Steam achievement you unlock, and it's for finding the action commands in the game and being able to actually issue a command and do something. So yeah, you can't see it because I'm there, but the little messenger pigeon at the bottom is what Curious Dynamics in the chat was just referencing. That's what you'd use to lock in your choices on your turn. So each hex has its own little action queue. Although it seems like labourer designation isn't specific to the hex, because I click on here. Oh, I don't know. Some of them seem... Each military company in Feudum has its own command queue. And there is a command queue for your persona for diplomatic and... Okay, cool, got it. So this is... I need to pay attention to this icon up here, because it's different types of queues. You know what I would be tempted to do? I would be tempted to have a different color code, so this symbol has a different color for this this box. And I think they've already done it a little bit over here, because when I click on a settlement, there's different layers of information, right? There's oh, here we go. Here's the military one. Sword, right? Sword for military. Oh no, that's the grace period. That's the military grace period. Okay. I would represent that as a shield or something, because I guess it's a sword on the floor, maybe. But this is the bit at the beginning of the game where you can't be attacked. It's a little bit confusing. Okay. There's 35 city guards in there. I just need to remember to put my badge on. I interacted with the hexagon. Who caught a stream? Oh, it's Sean. Hi, Sean. You've got there's one colour of name text that I cannot read in the multi-stream thing that I read the chat in. And Sean has got the illegible blue today. Look at that bar ticking away on our ecclesiastical thief. So I need to turn the music back down again, didn't I? I didn't. Who in this world does not wish to interact? With a hexagon. Like, can I just lay claim to loads of stuff? Just say, look guys, all these forests are mine now. I'm just gonna lay claim to all of them. There's nothing you can do about it. Is this the cost of doing these things? Is this what it gives me? Yeah, the total, this is the cost of the command, okay. That makes sense, it's down here by the confirm button. Failing to pay the cost is considered a soft fail. Uh-oh. Okay, I don't have all of this stuff. I don't have food and coins, so maybe I shouldn't be laying claims. Maybe I shouldn't be laying claims that my ass can't cash, as they say. Because it says that I'm going to fail if I can't do these things. If I don't have these things to spend. Top right, okay. Oh, I do have a bunch of resources, okay. So these are the production numbers of this, like what is being built, and this is what I have in my kingdom. That makes sense. That's like the local amount, and that's the global amount. Got it. Okay. Very well. Then we shall lay some claims. Just like our forefathers of old once laid claim to our grandmothers of old. And lo, 'twas good. And many babies were made, and from these babies many more babies were made, and more claims were made to more grandmothers. And so on until the present day, when our glorious kingdom of inbreds lays claim to that mountain over there, and that lake, and that lovely bit of river. And henceforth from this day, Croydon shall rule supreme in this single-player, multiplayer map, where no one else exists. Right, let me just try and force the stream back on. I don't know if that's working any better. I'm trying to force the stream to... I think that just logged me out of the chat and back in, though. I don't think that did anything. Just going to spend half the stream Googling how do I make Streamlabs, which I've paid a yearly subscription for, not be rubbish. Okay, so it's you guys. Sean didn't have any problems on YouTube. You guys are gaslighting me. Hate to be gaslit by chat. I paid a lot for this internet connection. The internet connection to my house is made of pure diamonds. I spent all the Patreon money very wisely to ensure that we would have an uninterrupted stream. Then you guys come on here with your potato modems, and when the stream doesn't work, you say it's my fault. I'm very sensitive to the one guy phenomenon because I'm a people pleaser. So if someone tells me if someone tells me something's wrong and they make the assumption that it's my fault, I'll just go along with it. It's why I'm adamant that I'm not going back to working in any sort of institutional workplace, because I just can't deal with that kind of thing. Are the things my fault, is it? Yeah? Okay, I can't see how it is, but you seem to believe that very strongly for your own reasons, and I'm a pushover, so we'll just go along with that. I know. Now I'm letting myself be bullied by people that connect to the internet using a root vegetable. Disgraceful. My royal advisor has returned. Curious Dynamics, I'm going to have to give you a more medieval name. So, Curious Dynamics, for the rest of this stream, you're going to be known as Olaf. Okay? My visor, my vizier. Olaf said, try scout your area. Click again on the village until you see garrison of your town. Okay. I think that was it. Is that the garrison? An order card will open with your unit shown in the top half. You know what confuses me slightly about the way this is laid out is that, like, Croydon is the name of the kingdom, right? Or is it the name of this town and the region around it? The reason that I'm confused by this is that this is hovering in the exact middle of this forest. So that looks like that is directly applied to the middle of this hex. And I don't know if it's actually trying to describe this entire region or this town. And it feels like, actually, if this is the name of this town and that's what it's assigned to, it should be in this bottom sixth of the hexagon. It's hovering above it, or it's hovering in the middle of the region, and that's confusing me a bit. Yeah, so this, like, hover for details, it really needs to lock where the top of the box is and then unfold underneath it. I find that where the tooltip works really irritating. Right, we're trying to find the garrison. I'm guessing this is the garrison. See, the word garrison isn't in the interface here at all. So the connection between... Even if we're just thinking about the guide as an external thing, the connection isn't here, because this is... As far as I can tell, this is the garrison, because this is the only thing that has military units in it. Ah, here we go. Manage units. Tactical settings. Can I... That's sending one of them? Hold shift to select or deselect every unit between the previous and current select. Okay, that's just one unit. That's why I can't split it. I was wondering if I could, like, split it and send half out somewhere. Okay. So my town guards are going to come out this way, and they're gonna go and explore over here, because we want to know what's going on down there. There could be anything under these clouds. Could be witches. Could be just general foreign folk. We don't know. We've got to go out, explore the world. Thank you, Olaf. You are truly my sword, my shield, and my codpiece. Sire, you have laid so many claims. For many morrows we shall be trudging in the moors nearby, sticking flags into the mud and saying, "Behold!" I'm saying sire, I'm a baroness, aren't I? I forgot about that. I forgot I'm a baroness. I should have one of those, like, pointy princess hats with the dangly on it. I don't know how historically accurate those are, but... Medieval babes. Milady. There they are, look! Some geezers. Forsooth, I must point my sword over yonder. Why are you doing that, my lord? Because I'm trying to make it get rusty. Behold, should I hold my sword aloft in the rain and the lightning, I shall become a powerful avatar of the heavens. My lord, methinks you will simply get an electric shock. Methinks you will be electrocuted, my lord. Do not be foolish, young squire. I am master of the scientific arts, and I know nothing of this electrocution of which you speak. Fun fact, electrocution is a portmanteau of execution and electricity. So, if you've ever had an electric shock, you were not electrocuted. Because in order to be electrocuted, you would have to die. So, you can use that in your life now. If anyone around you kind of gets an electric shock and says, "Ow, I electrocuted myself." Instead of, showing them any kind of concern or comfort, you can just correct their use of words. People love it when you do that. Can you imagine? You've just... You think you've just been electrocuted. And you're in a lot of pain. Your hair's sticking up. You're thinking, what did I do to deserve this? And some kind soul lets you know, actually that was an electric shock. You could have said, I was nearly electrocuted. But it doesn't make sense to say that you were electrocuted. Unless you're claiming that you died and now you are undead. My lord, the ecclesiastical fief is nearly done. Would you like me to send an order of monks? Where are we going to get an order of monks from? Well, I was going to order them online. My lord, I don't think it's working. Quiet, squire. For soon I shall catch a thunderstorm on the tip of my sword. And then I shall be the new baroness of this land. When God smites me down with his heavenly glory, I shall become the new baroness. Whatever you say, my lord.
I've got a pokey stick.
This is just a sort of shoddy replacement for Blackadder. I'm sorry. Look at it. It's beautiful. All that I've ever wanted. So, couple of things art-wise. It would be lovely to get a little... It just needs to be a particle effect of, like, wood and stone dust and stuff going up when the thing gets built. It just popped down. It didn't fall down onto the map like a board game. It didn't go and, like, build itself in. And those things are expensive to do, and I understand why. But just like a puff of smoke, something. Also, the weather effects, it gets very visually dark. And I think if you want to avoid making it hard to see what's actually on the map, tinting it towards blue rather than actually darkening it is a good idea. So you're sort of using shading to imply that it's darker rather than actually making it darker, because it gets very hard to see some of the art at that point. Hello, ecclesiastical thief. What's going on here? We could construct an improvement. We could demolish it. It's just straight away. Just get their hopes up. And they say, sorry, we've changed our mind about the ecclesiastical thief. We can rename it. Monks are us. Oh no, hang on. The feudum, the area is called Croydon. The thief, the ecclesiastical thief is called Monks are us. There we go. So I click on it. It's still called Darudil there. That's because renaming it is an action that needs to be sent by a carrier pigeon to the server, I do believe. My lord, what is a server? 'Tis in the cloud, good squire. That doesn't really... that tells me where the server is, but what is it? Well, 'tis like a codex of information about our world, except... unlike scriptures which simply record information, this codex dictates how this world actually functions. That sounds very confusing, my lord. 'Tis! This is why I do not bother myself with such things. Okay, where are we going? We're going to move... we're going into the forest now. They're going over there. Sending my issued commands. Anywhere where we can build stuff? Can designate some labours over there. Is the labour designation for the whole kingdom, or is it just for that tile? It seems to be just for that tile, from what I've... So I know when the dev gets to watch this, they're going to find it really frustrating because I'm not learning it how they would expect. But I probably am representative of a type of player. And I was literally having this conversation with Sean before I came on the chat in our Discord about early adopters. When you make a new game and you get your first bunch of playtesters, you've got your early adopters, and those people are representative of the people who really love this sort of game. Ideally. Sometimes you're going to get some people who just want to check out the game because, you know, they follow you online or something, but they're not necessarily the audience for the game. And then you're going to have these early adopters that are super hardcore, really into that type of game. And that means they are going to see past all of the UX or tutorialization problems because they care so much about playing this game that they're happy to read a guide or go into the Discord and ask the dev how it works. And then you've got someone like me, which is representative more of I'm not going to say most players, but it is a very prevalent player type who wants to just dick around and learn as they go and then look things up when they need to. And that means that watching this back is going to be really painful for the developer because I'm not interacting with the game in a way that a lot of their early adopters will have, which is to actually read the manual, ask questions in the Discord. I'm not going to do any of that, and that's partly because I don't have time, and it's partly because that is not how I learn a game, and it's if a game requires me to do that, I'm usually going to move on. It's different in a case where, you know, the developer's given you the game and says, okay, here's the 3 things you need to do to get started. But I didn't really get that in this case, and the game doesn't have it baked in either. And it was all to do with finding that the buttons to do stuff were over here. You could totally have this on and be taking turns while you're watching something or while you're doing some work or something. Which is, yeah, it's a classic 4X thing, really. I mean, I used to play one of these with the play by email thing when I was a teenager. It's sort of quite a nice way to play a game.
The good old days when things used to be slower.
My lord, how could things possibly have been slower than this? Quiet, Squire. Where are we going? Are they moving again? Have I queued they're moving? One of the problems I'm having is I'm not perceiving the ticks go by. That's showing the previous turns, right? So they moved, they were there, they moved there here, and now they're going to move over there. Does that mean you can... Yeah, so you can waypoint them to do multiple moves as far as I can see. What should we do over here? So I can create a feudum, which is like a little state. I don't want to do that. I don't have enough stuff on the map to do that. Oh, giggles. The first... So my biggest City Skylines plunder was for years. I was like literally in-game years because I had the game turned up to full speed. I was like, what's going on? Like, my economy's crashing. I don't understand. And then it took me 3 or 4 years in the game to realize that I had roads that led out of town that didn't bring anyone back in. And it's just like, Rule number 1 of urban planning. You need people to be able to get into your town and out of it. And if anything, it's probably better to only have roads going into your town than it is to only have roads going out of your town, which is what I had for several years and didn't realize. Olaf, thank you for your advice, good Olaf, to build a farm, an improvement, if you will, over on yonder hill, aside from the abbey, which is now appropriately named Monks Are Us. We shall create a farm. It will be most verdant. It will be rich of soil and of productivity, and many carrots and grapes and sheep shall grow there. The trees will loom heavy with their sheep and their chickens.
Sir, I don't think that's actually how sheep and chickens are made.
What do you mean? You dare to question my farming knowledge?
Well, I am actually a farmer, sir, and I've never seen a sheep or a chicken on a tree.
Listen. You can tell me how to run my kingdom, and I'll tell you how to stand there with a pointy stick. How about that? Right. Farmland. Robin is recommending Limmy playing City Skylines. I mean, Limmy whenever Limmy gets a chance to create something in a game, just does. I don't know if you watched Limmy's Oblivion run, but the sort of roleplay he was doing with this hideous character and the NPCs was very funny. So I imagine the Skylines is very good. So yeah, I'm getting that problem here where this is occupying the center of the tile above it, which makes it look... I understand now that it's telling us about the tile below it, but there's just something about how close it is to the center of this hexagon that makes it look like it's visually associated with this hexagon. You know, we're going back to UX Gestalt theory stuff here, but you put something in the center of something, it looks like it's associated with that thing rather than the thing below the thing that it's in the center of, because human brains, they do stuff with patterns, they make silly assumptions, and they don't know what you meant when you made your game because they can't read your mind. They just use their eyes and their own one. That's a new educational song I've been working on. Maybe needs to go through a few more iterations before I put that one on Spotify. Right, that's our wood chopping forest. I still don't quite understand if labor designation is specific to a tile. Because if I go on either of these, they're both assigned to forest. Although maybe that's the default. So here, I say that in the forests between Croydon and Monk's we shall send hunters, and they shall catch in the forests many lush chickens and carrots and potatoes which have not been discovered on this continent yet, and bears and owls, and they shall bring them to my table, and many foods shall be quaffed and slurped until everyone in Croydon is fat and merry. What say you? Robin, that sounds amazing. Oh. See, I was a theme park kid more than a roller coaster tycoon kid, and unfortunately, theme park didn't really let you deliberately build a incomplete coaster. There's a game chat, a global game chat. Good morrow, sweet children. I have this day discovered how to issue commands thanks to my assistant Olaf, who did readeth the fine codex. I wisheth thou a fine tick henceforth. This is like basic bad Middle English translation like you get in Dragon's Dogma or something. Like the translation in Dragon's Dogma, when they wrote it into Middle English, it's like they clearly went to the translation house and they were like, right, we want it to sound like European medieval, English medieval, but we don't want it to confuse each other too much. And they were like, okay, so they're just going to say ought and naught a lot, and that's it. That will be it. There's aught in this field. 'Tis dung. 'Tis a pile of dung. What have they found? What have you found? You found an independent region. Wonderful. I hate to tell it to you lads, but you're never coming home. You're gonna go on a crusade for me. The funny thing about this stream is when I stop, it's going to carry on going. So maybe we need to come back at some point and just work out how ruined my kingdom has got in the meantime. One thing is, though, this is the total game length. So it doesn't tell us what that is in real time, which is unusual because we get the tick length in seconds, right? And then this is turned into the amount of ticks over here. I cannot really do the quick math to work out how many seconds that is and when the game is going to end. And I think this counter up here would be a much more useful to players if it told me the game ends in 3.2 days or whatever it is, right? Because I'm gonna work it out now. Let's get a calculator up. So, how long is a tick? It's going to change in a second. It will go when it ticks over. We'll know how long a tick is again. I'm sure it's in the guide, but okay. So a tick is 90 seconds, and we've got 800, or we had like 850 ticks or something, which is that many seconds divided by 60 is that many minutes divided by 24 is that many hours. Is that many? Is that right? That can't be right. 800 times 90. That's how many seconds in a total game. We divide that by 60. That's how many minutes in a total game. We divide that by 60 again. That's how many hours in a total. Okay, a game is 20 hours long. Is that right? 20 hours? Do it again. Let's assume it's 900 ticks long. 900 times 90. That's how many minutes it is. That's how many hours it is. So thinking about it from like a session design point of view, and like this is a rare instance of when my games as a service background is relevant to an indie game, because you have to think about this type of stuff when you're making like some mobile game and you have an event in game. If the games are roughly a day in real time or slightly less, and maybe we can modify this, maybe we can change the ticks. I can't remember what settings I got when I set up the game, but there might be a problem with making them between 20 and 24 hours, if that's the length. Because when you go into a game of this, if you're there from the beginning of the game on tick 1, chances are you're doing that at your regular gaming time. You know, let's just assume you're a person that has a regular gaming time when they're usually available to game. Now, if the game is 20 hours long, then there's going to be a 6 to 10 hour block of time during that when you're asleep, and then the game ends 4 hours before you played it the first time, which means that you're not going, if you've got 2 slots of regular gaming time on 2 days and you play at the start of the game, the second time you play is not going to fall at a time when you're able to play the game because the game is finished then. The ticks go up. Okay. So how many ticks is it in total? So it's going to be like a week long a game. Right? Thank you, Canel. So that is about a 10th of the bar or a 12th of the bar. Okay, that makes sense. That makes so much more sense. Yeah, for this type of game to work, it needs to be that length, because if it was like a day or 2 days, the bias towards when the particular players are up is going to be really massive, whereas if it's spread out over a couple of weeks, then not as much of a problem. Yeah, 10 days long makes a lot more sense. Because the longer you get to play the game, the more it will level out how much playtime people have. That makes a lot more sense. Okay, where did we get to? So what we're doing, Kalamona, just to tell you what's happening here. My town guards have gone on a crusade. They've gone all the way over the map. There's no one else on the map anyway. I've been told by divine providence that this is an empty map. And we're just sort of learning where things are. I had a big problem at the start of the game just trying to work out where my actions were as a player. And then once I realized that everything is over here, we were fine. But the guide sort of front loads so much information that wasn't just telling me in order to actually play the game, you use these buttons. So worked that out eventually, but I probably would have bounced off it if I was playing it more seriously and not for a stream. We've got Monks Are Us. That's the name of the ecclesiastical fief over here. And I'm really just working out how to sort of build and pooter around without any other players involved, which is fine. But very, very impressed by most parts of the game. Just, there are certain things about the UX and how it onboards people that if you watch the whole stream back, you'll get some helpful stuff on, I think. I had this like when I thought the games were 20 hours long, I just had this really funny mental image of like basically everyone having a bad game because the game always ends when they're not able to play. It should just be like everyone starts the game at the same time for them, and then just everyone has the worst experience because they're not able to play during the last chunk of the game. I think we should lay some more claims. What say you? What say you, chat? Over yonder. I shall not lay claim to this. This region shall remain independent, and all the cats of all the towns shall go there to defecate. And maybe we shall send someone to collect this skeleton to display in the Great Hall in my honour. Is there an option to do that? No, we'd have to lay claim to it. I don't want it. I don't want that desert. I want that lake. I want more forests. We will lay claim to all of the forests. And perhaps we will build something here. Are we claiming this already? Has that got a claim on it? All of this will be mine. And perhaps we should train some more guards, if it is possible. I do not have a way to train more guards. It is a shame, but they have their duties over in the frontier lands. My liege, will you ever stop holding your sword aloft? No, 'tis my duty. To the Baroness, my sword will remain pointing skyward. That's not why you said you were doing it before. Oh no, I've disappeared. 'Tis 'cause we went over here, my lord. Wait, what's that? That's got a border. Very interesting. Change course. We should go into this person's land. Surely this will cause no problems. What is going on? We should wander into these forests, and should anyone try to stop us, we shall hit them with the pointy stick. Yes, my lord. Pointy stick is ready. It's going to be a long stream, yeah. We'll be here for... Ah, here's the labor assignments for the town. Look at that. We're living next to a river and we've got no fishermen. So the yellow is the priority of this profession and the green is how many there actually are, I think. We shall have less foragers. And we shall have... perhaps... We have no gemstone miners and no gong farmers. What is a gong farmer, my lord? Gong farming is what your mother used to do for a living. Cleaning and removing waste from latrines and cesspits. Often a grim and low-status jobbing. We need some of them. We must have gong farmers. Oh, I see. Oh, it's a calendar. Okay, so how do we are in autumn. So we're setting our priorities for doing these things for every season. In winter, we shall cease our gong farming. We're very gong farming focused in our plans at the moment. In winter, we shall cease our gong farming, for it shall freeze anyway. It shall freeze in the ground. And in the winter, we shall go monk mode. And so many monks shall be produced. All of our monks shall have baby monks. And the sounds of little monk feet will ring in the new year. In the spring we shall become a society of bards. And we shall sing songs about the leaves and the berries. Very well, my liege. A wise plan indeed. Baby monks, yes. Where do you think monks come from, Smugfire? Ah, new land. We shall add it to our region. Are you sure that's a good idea, my lord? Yes. We must have it. 'Tis where I plan to build a new thing. What will the new thing be, my lord? I do not know what thing it shall be until I have seen yonder menu. Ah, finally. Finally I get to control a farmland.
'Tis the wisdom of the ancients that one should only graze 20 livestock in each hexagonal region of the realm. Very well, my lord. Make it so. Callum, and I'm not going to read any more guides. I've already read enough guides today. I am doing things I find to be humorous because I'm going to play this for another half hour on the stream, and then I may return to it at a later date, but to really engage with this to the point... Basically, we had a conversation earlier in the game about guides, and the level to which I need to be invested in doing the game before I will be interested in reading a guide is very, very high. And I think that's probably true for quite a lot of your potential audience segment as well. It's like people generally want to play a game by doing the thing and failing at it, and then looking up the information on how to do better next time after they've failed at doing that thing. People wanting to like understand how to do things right before they try and do it is generally not what games are good at, broadly speaking. And I get that with 4X you've got a audience segment who are a lot more tolerant of that kind of thing, but a lot of people are going to bounce off it, so I'm just playing in a way that's more in line with what I can do in a 2-hour stream, and also what how I think other people will engage with it as well a lot of the time. Grugrod. We shall destroy Grugrod, for it has a silly name. The selected tile cannot be... Very well. Grugrod, what say ye? We wish to shout at you and call you names. Tell me of your customs. Grugrod? A clustered settlement with several dozen houses and many busy townfolk. The village has acquired the most vital craftsmen and artisans, providing basic services as well as a small local church. Interesting. I lay claim to it. My lord, you cannot lay claim to it. Tis belongeth to someone else. But I wish to take it from the Baroness, Laranja. What shall we do now we're here, my lord? Well, methinks you should look for some sort of diplomacy menu. Shall we read the guide, my lord, and look for whether there is a diplomacy menu there? No, surely not, for games should be playable by simply clicking around and looking for stuff. Our virtue is dropping. You can't rule a feudum without breaking a few virtue eggs.
Let us in. We simply wish to take all of your things. Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's a way of directly interacting with that settlement. Can we have some crisps? We have traveled a long way. We would like to eat some crisps. Ah. Having to, like, lay claim to places and then also incorporate them is a little bit long-winded. But hey. It's a 4X. That's what we're here for. I lay claim to all of these places. Perhaps, if we search the woods, we shall find some new men to be guards. For we have sent our guards so far across the world. And now they are guarding outside someone else's town. Blue Shard in the chat said, what type of civ is this? This type of civ is Medieval Croydon Simulator. I'm just claiming everything. Interesting. Ah, we can rally some troops here. Excellent. So you have contract lengths. So you can kind of... You're sort of creating units, but you don't really own them. They're not like your men indefinitely. Very well. We will have 4 archers. 4 dangerous farm boys. And 2 tribesmen and a couple of 4 religious fanatics. And we will send them out. "'Tis time to rally the troops. For what, my lord? We have no reason for troops. We must conquer the north. Why do you want to conquer the north, my lord? Well, 'tis over there, and 'tis unconquered. I haven't played an Age of Empires game in years. So I like these because you get to do lots of micromanagement, but it's not in real time. So once we've rallied our troops, it will appear in this. This is like the garrison menu, I think. And then we will conquer the north. "'Tis our crusade to clear this cursed cloud from the map. It doth stretch as far as the eye can see, and then furthermore.
Mhm. Let us engage. Let us look at the tactical settings for our militia. What shall we do, my lord? We will be on high alert. So one very small thing that I was meant to mention earlier in the stream and I forgot is there's like a context to this menu on the right, and it says like this is the type of command queue it is, and it's got like a kingdom command queue and then a like a military and kingdom, whatever these different. That is such a small icon, and I think you could pair that with changing the color of this surround. So like maybe one is green and one is purple, or that are dark blue, or just some, you know what the colors are that work with your game. But this change in the context over on here is just too small for like how big a difference in the type of menu it is, if that makes sense. Takes so many ticks. Yeah, I know there's a lot of, like in the game dev space on YouTube and Reddit, there's a lot of sort of valorization and romanticization of solo development, but yeah, like the dev here just said, like the reason this looks so great and feels so polished is it's not all the work of one person, right? And at some point you have to sort of accept that games need to play good and they need to look good, and if you're not capable of doing all of that yourself, then the goal shouldn't really be to make a game yourself. And if you're totally set on making a game on your own because you can't do anything else, or you really want to make a game entirely on your own, then you need to care about the other stuff and get good at it. The amount of people that I meet all the time that are like, well, I can program but I can't do art, I'm not an artistic person. It's like, well, there was a time in your life when you weren't a person who could program either, and you learned to. I think people learn to use a game engine, they learn to do some programming, they set about making a game, and then they sort of think, well, that was really hard to do, so I don't want to learn some other sub-discipline or whatever. Or they just sort of settle on, they make a game they're not really capable of making on their own, and then refuse to get any help. And then at some point they're like, well, this is all I could do because I didn't have this and that. And it's, well, your players aren't going to care about that, are they? They're not going to like... People don't buy games based on sympathy for the developers. So what you make still needs to be good. So if you can only work alone, then you need to make something that is well within your set of skills. And that includes the artistic stuff. There's no point just saying, well, I can't do art, because you either learn to do art, or you use assets in a very clever way, or you work with someone else. And I think the thing of like a game like this as well, well, no, sort of go backpedaling a little bit, but any game where you've sort of designated yourself the project lead, you're no longer just the programmer, you're the director of the game. So you're kind of responsible for what it looks like, regardless of whether you're making that or getting somewhere else to do it or whatever. So you still end up being the person that needs to have taste and the overall vision for the thing. And that's part of the reason why this looks so great, because it's so consistent. It's so like, it's got such a clear idea of what it's doing in terms of like, this is the style of the world, this is the style of the interface, this is the thing it's evoking in your head culturally, is like medieval manuscripts and like a particular illustration style from that. And that's coming a little bit from how Crusader Kings did things. It's coming a little bit from what they do in Kingdom Come Deliverance with their interfaces and stuff, where they make it look like a medieval manuscript. All of that art direction stuff here is just really, really good. And you can be one person that does that all on your own, but if you're sort of developing in a way where you're the project lead, then you're sort of responsible for how everything ends up looking, even if you don't directly do it yourself, you know? Yeah. Ah, Dundreaton. So I've now reached a point where it's similar to where I was at the start of the game, where basically I can see a system in the game, but I don't know how I would interact with it. There's not an obvious mechanical input for me as a player to be able to interact with the system. So when we first started the game, I was sort of sat here, I read some guides, I was clicking around in all of the terrain and looking at my different places that I had settled, and I could see all this information. I could see all of this, you know, resources along the top, the information about the hex I've got clicked on the left, and it took me a very long time to understand that the way I interacted with the world was by using these actions on the right, and then these are context sensitive to the hexes. Now I've kind of hit that point again in the game, but where I've hit it is I can go over here. I can see that there are towns that are part of another feudum. I go over here. There's another feudum over here. And I can start to get the sense that there are other players, or I don't know if these are players or NPCs, but it doesn't really matter at this point. But there's no way for me to really understand what I do about this, or what I can do to them. You know, I'm stomping through their land at the moment. Presumably that's a bad thing to do, but I'm not playing this seriously. I'm just sort of learning it. And I can see that there's that element of the game system there, but I don't know what I can do with it. And sure, there is probably something in the guide that tells me, but based on our previous experience of the guide, I got this deep into the guide, right? All of the foundation stuff, I don't recall the foundation stuff really telling us that to issue actions I needed to go over here, because it was so focused on explaining the long tail, how either the minutiae of like, this is a tooltip, which I didn't need to know because it just happens and I don't need to know what a tooltip is, or the kind of long tail stuff that I'm not really going to engage with until I'm like 100 ticks into the game, of like, this is how this type of building works. And what I really needed to know was, as a player, here are the mechanics that you use to interact with the game. Okay, you're going to need some other information about the world in order to make those choices well, but in order for you to even give a shit about any of that in the first place, you're going to need to start playing with the game and touching things and doing stuff. And I've been able to get to a point where I understand how to do that in my own little feudum. But as soon as I've hit the point where there seem to be other characters or players on the board, I now do not have a clear option of how I interact with them in any way. So that's just something to think about, I think. Because I can't... I'm sort of at a loss now. And really, like, when I'm next to a town earlier, and I thought maybe I'll be able to do some diplomacy with them. Okay, there might be something in the guide that tells me how to do that. But there should be something in the interface that already hints at what the action is before I go to the guide. And then I might go, oh, what are the ramifications of that? I'll go and check out the guide. But I'm not going to go to the guide to read about something until I know where the action is that is implicated in it, right? So a moment ago, Dev was saying in the chat that, you know, you need to pay attention when you're allocating workers to do different stuff and all of that. And that's an example of, like, I found the action, I can play around with it, and now if I really care about doing it well, I can go off and read the information about it, right? Whereas the situation I'm currently in, where I'm starting to see players on the map and think, is there a way of interacting with them? I can't see any action I can take. So I'm not interested in the information about the contextual information about what I can do with or to them, because I can't see the action first. I need to know what the action is I can do. And then before I take the action, I might think, oh, I should get some more context on this. I'll go to the guide. That would be the kind of UX drive for me to read the guide, would be, I can see the action, and before I take the action, I want to go and get a bit more context on it. I'm not going to front load loads of information for myself on a game that I don't know if I'm going to invest that much time in. So basically, that amount of reading to get to enough knowledge to play the game in a basic level, that would have to be, I don't know. That's the amount of reading in a tutorial I would expect to do once I've played 10 hours of a game and done quite a lot. Whereas the interaction level on this game is quite low because of the time nature of it. And it's basically expecting quite a lot of people to get them to read that much before they really know whether they want to play the game. And this is a distinction that comes up quite a lot on the channel, is the difference between tutorialization and onboarding. Tutorialization is teaching people how to play the game, but it happens at the same time as onboarding, which is ensuring that people want to play the game by giving them a fun first-time experience, right? And a lot of the time you need to align these things, and the way that you do it is by getting players into doing the thing as quickly as possible. And sometimes that's just saying, click on this, click on this, click on this, and then showing them, look, you just did this by doing all those clicks. Now do it again over here, and you do it a few times until you know how to do it, that kind of thing. But I personally, and even like players that play these games very hardcore, which is it's why I'm saying your kind of early adopters who have been playing this for a while are going to be blind to these problems, because in many ways the way that you've set up this game is more hardcore than something like Crusader Kings, and Crusader Kings is already very hardcore. But those people are going to kind of be blind to this issue of the amount of investment in just even the idea of playing the game someone has to have in order to wade through to the point where they're actually doing something, you know. I've been through that whole process with trying to get to the point where I was really interacting with my own feudum, and now I can't. I've just encountered other characters, and I just can't really see how the game, what affordances the game has for interacting with the other people on the map at all. Right, so we're going to try and make a new. Okay, let's see if let's maybe. Let's create a feudum over here. We'll put it as far as possible from the main one as we can. We will create a feudum over yonder. Okay, it's a selection of tiles. It's like a... Okay, we'll do that. We must set a suitable manner. I do not understand. Okay. So I choose. This lets me select which tile we're looking at. This would be much better if we could just sort of highlight the tile as we hover over them. So that one is going to be the manor. That one. Okay, so when I made the monks are us, that was creating a new feudum. Twill be a settlement, my lord. 'Twill be called Lefton Home. For it is our home to the left of our other home. This feudum. Although Monks R Us seems to be incorporated into Croydon. We will construct a new improvement, my lord. No, we will not. One thing I like here is you have a very clear sort of just distinction between, you know, open land, you build an improvement on it. Forests are for resources, which is very neat in a kind of abstract board gamey way, but feels like it maps onto the we are simulating economies in the Middle Ages type thing as well. That's neat. Fine, I suppose 'tis time we claimed yonder desert. Even if it is full of cat duty now. I said earlier in the stream, but I keep getting thrown off by the fact that this title is up here. Like, I can see that is the town, and that is the thing, but this is centered in the middle of this hexagon. Right. Ah. We can upgrade it to a town. We can upgrade it to a city with a stone wall. Do we have to do them one by one? Can we skip a stage? We can downgrade it to a hamlet. I will simply never be a town. We will simply become a city. In 21 ticks. When we are offline. I'm going to have to log off in a minute, because that's all the time I have dedicated to this for today. I think there's something really solid here. I'm going to have to drop in and play it like a day or two later and just to get a feel for it, really. But I do feel kind of intrigued enough to want to do that sort of my own volition, which is good, because that means the game has kind of done what you'd expect there. But yeah, it's going to need... It's very... like, doing the first time user experience for a game where you expect people to come on, play for a little bit, and then go away and not play it for a day. It's an interesting challenge in its own right, because you need a way of drawing them back, and then you sort of naturally fall into the hole of having to do like daily login rewards and stuff like that, which is like all of the games that want people to play every day to keep the games going and to keep the game good for other players have those things for a reason. They end up needing to have those things, those sort of appointment mechanics is what you call them in games of service. And, you know, it could be like a positive appointment mechanic is giving people a little prize for logging in every day, and a more negatively framed one is like an energy mechanic in a Farmville or something, where it's like, you can't play anymore today, come back tomorrow. Or pester your friends for a life or whatever. And games that require people to come in frequently do end up needing these things. So it'd be interesting to see how you handle that here, because you can't really do anything that affects the match that you're in so much. Croydon is being upgraded now though, so
How do I get out to the maineth menu? Cons, I think you would still give yourself a studio brand regardless of whether it's one person or more anyway. Because you need a trading name. You need a Steam name. And it doesn't really make sense to use your real name as your company name anyway. You know, like so I have a shell company that is like everything I do in terms of YouTube and consulting on other people's games and the money I get from Patreon and stuff like that. And it's not my name. And it's not Indie Game Clinic either. It is actually Baroness Binklebonk Limited. Or something like that. The chat has stopped for me in the main thing. Let me just... Let's see, check. It's not updating on my phone. Says we're still live. That's always good. Yeah, there was one other question in the chat I wanted to answer before we wrap up. Stephen Ginn, I never know how to say your name. In past projects in free-to-play, was the aim always minimal text, ideally none? Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, that is the aim in a lot of game design. Really. I think, you know, and I said earlier on in this stream that, you know, this game doesn't have a tutorial, and I'm fine with that, because I think generally speaking, people try and build their tutorials too early, because a lot of more rookie game developers, they kind of they basically look at what a commercially released game is and they go, what does this have? It has levels, it has tutorial, it has a story, and they rush to get to the point where their game looks and feels like it has all of those parts, because that's what they think game development is. And that means that they kind of rush ahead and put things into the game before they really know what that thing should be. And a tutorial is an example of one. A story is another example of one. Like, people often make games where they start adding story and they start adding dialogue before they've really tested if the gameplay concept works, before they've even tested if, like, the core fantasy of the game appeals to people, all of that kind of stuff. So I am usually happy to see a game that doesn't have a tutorial, because it means that the developer is waiting until they really know if all the core game works before they put a tutorial in. Now, the reason I say that the goal should be a tutorial with no text is, like, that's usually unrealistic. You usually need to have text at some point to explain something or to tell players something. And I would say there's two types of text. One is like short form, giving the player a directive, right? Press X to jump, and then you press X and it's like, I know how to jump. And then you do a jumping in a couple of different contexts and so on. And then there's like longer text which explains the game, and that would be like, in this game it's all that at the moment. It's like all of the tooltips and the guide, and that's all there for people to go and seek out. But there's none of that shorter form, click over here to select an action, which you do need at some point. But then there's the other thing underneath, which is just how intuitive is the game in the first place. And before you make any sort of tutorial, whether it's the short form directive, do this, now do this, step by step thing, or this like helper features in the background of the game, like a guide and tips on loading screens and all of that kind of stuff. Before you get to that stage, you need to make sure that the game is like as intuitive as possible. And like one of the things I mentioned earlier on in the stream is because... Oh, how do I log in again?
New kings arose, yet the dragon was low.
How do I get back into my game? I don't know. Yeah. So one of the things I pointed out early on in this game is, okay,
just using this one playtest, and like maybe this is something that's come up in other playtests, but the issue I had was these are the main actions I should be thinking about as a player, right? If I was playing a board game, these are the things that would be on my list of things I can do in a turn. And all of the rest of the information in the game sort of revolves around giving me context for those actions, because the player actions are like the most important thing to onboard people into, because otherwise they can't work out if they like the game at all, because it's just like a big bag of confusing stuff that they don't have any reason to care about yet. Now, when I talk about making sure the game is intuitive before you build a tutorial, the sort of thing I would think about in terms of the interface design here, there is so much about this interface that is very, very good. Like, this is almost perfect. The visual style is gorgeous. I really, really like how this looks. But there are some decisions that do not highlight the thing that a new player needs to have their attention drawn to. So one of the things I would do with this design is make a bit more of a big deal about these buttons. And that could just be giving them a bit more internal contrast, right? So maybe this surround around a button has like an ivory thing or something like that. Maybe they all have a different color. They're not just gold on green. Maybe they're all a slightly different color, like the change terrain is the green button and the laborer designation is brown, and they're on a little set ivory thing or a little set gold thing. Because when you create more like internal contrast within a game element, it draws more attention to it, right? It's like, imagine seeing a zebra on a green field. The zebra is going to draw your attention, not just because it's white or because it's black, but the fact that it's black and white and stripy means it's like a visually noisy thing. And that becomes an element of drawing your attention. And there's lots of things like a visual thing on a screen can do to draw your attention. Moving or like throbbing or flashing is one of them that we get in like visual design for games that we don't have in, like, if you're doing traditional graphic design and making a poster, you can't make it move. So we've already got something free that games have that other things don't, which is to be able to make things move. But making something have a little bit more contrast than the rest of the game is one way of drawing attention to it. And like up here, all of these things are basically stuff I don't care about at the start of the game and I don't need to know about. So they can be this kind of faded green thing. But given that these are the player's main way of interacting with the world, and they were a thing that I struggled for about 20 minutes to find at the start of the game, before we even get to the point of thinking about, like, how would you design a tutorial for this, just thinking from the point of view of onboarding the player and making sure that their attention is just naturally drawn towards what's important for them to do, I would just zhuzh these buttons up and make them look like a really juicy thing that you just naturally look over and go, ooh, what's that? I want to click on it, right? Yeah, the reason, so the dev was just saying about paywalls and energy bars. I'm basically not talking about paywalls, but I think you might need some way of incentivizing players to come back regularly, because otherwise the game gets ruined for other people, right? This is one of the reasons why, you know, Animal Crossing is a premium game with, as far as I'm aware, no in-app purchases, or if they do, they're like full-blown DLCs. But it does have loads of appointment mechanics. It's like you can only do so much in a given day because your fruit runs out on your island and stuff. One of the reasons they do that is because they want to have a large online community so that new players who join, you know, their friends are still playing and they can go to their island and stuff, right? So I talk about it at the beginning of the stream anyway, so when you get a chance to watch it back, you get some of the context for what I'm talking about there. But online multiplayer games are very subject to the network effect, and it doesn't matter if the game is free to play or a premium experience where no one ever pays any money. If players need other players to be online for the game to be good, you need a way of keeping other players online. And it's one of the reasons why, you know, this is an instance of, like, you're obviously a very skilled developer. You've made something really, really good and really polished here. You've already got players playing it. But this is one of the reasons why a lot of the time when someone tells me their game idea is multiplayer, I just am like, yeah, you don't need to make that yet in your career. And that's because there are all of these additional problems that come along with making a multiplayer game that aren't necessarily technical engineering issues. They are much more like, how do you solve the network effect? And that's a problem that isn't just video games. Like, if you go onto any forums for board games and card game design, there is an equivalent to, like, the new game dev who wants to make an MMO, right? And everyone goes, ha ha ha, you're so silly, you don't know about this. But the equivalent of it in board game and card game design circles is the person that wants to make a CCG. And the reason why someone shouldn't make a new CCG is not to do with any technical aspect like it might be with video games, is to do with the network effect. Because if you've got a type of player that might want to play your CCG, they already play Magic the Gathering or Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh or whatever, and they play it specifically because their friends play it as well, and they have their little network of people that they play it with. So it means that for every person that you want to play your game, you now have to convince not just them, but their social group. So you have this weird, it's kind of like a high-risk reward thing, where it's like, it's harder to get people to play your game because you're trying to get them to stop playing the CCG they currently play and come over to your game. But if you are successful, because what you've done is really good, then you get 5 players at once instead of 1, because you get the entire social group. But in order to do that, what you're making has to actually be better than the CCG that they're currently playing, right? So this is a game design problem that exists across, like, collectible card games that you play in a social context in offline, and multiplayer games that require big player bases in order to play. It's like, you've got to keep the game full of people in order for it to work. And that's the only reason why I brought up things like, you know, gradually drip feeding people rewards and stuff for logging in every day. I'm not in any way, shape or form telling you that your game should become a, like, horrible free-to-play game. I'm just saying there's a reason why even some premium games end up doing that stuff, like, you know, Helldivers and stuff like that. It's to keep the player base big and healthy, because people will go and do something else otherwise, and then other people will get their games ruined because they started a game and it had all these other players in, and some of them drifted off, and then they didn't have an opponent anymore, you know? Anyway, thank you all for joining today. I'm going to probably drop back into this game at some point in the next couple of days and see what's happened to Croydon. But I appreciate everyone who joined. Tomorrow, I'm checking out 2 games on the stream. Those of you who have been following for the last year will know that Thursday is the day that I usually do these surgery-type streams. I'm going to keep that as the day that I sort of promise to do it every week, because, you know, this channel is ultimately built around a Patreon community, and I need to sort of stick to doing certain things, because it's like a community service, right? People send their games and they get like a very long deep dive-ish type stream out of them, which, you know, a lot of streamers wouldn't do. A lot of streamers are motivated to play games that are going to get more clicks, whereas here, the point of the streams is we hang out and we chat about game design and UX and creative direction and stuff like that. And in many ways, it doesn't really matter what the game is, as long as there's something cool we can talk about that comes out of the game. But, you know, I've got hundreds of games on my list still. I'm working my way through them. Some days I'll do a stream just for one game when it's a game like this that seems just a big bit longer and chunkier and like it needs a bit more time. But yeah, there will always be a Thursday stream where I do something like this. So tomorrow we are looking at 2 games about rewilding. They were both sort of strategy games where you control plants or flowers, which I thought was interesting. And yeah, if you want to send a game in, there is how to submit a game at the bottom left of the screen down there. You need to do it via the website. There's a form on the website. Don't email me stuff, I just delete it. And there is also, every 2 weeks, maybe more often, a community playtest stream. And the difference there is those games are members of our Discord community, so people who support the channel financially and help me to keep going doing this thing, making videos as well as doing these streams. So if you want to jump the queue with your game and get it play tested on the stream or get some help with it, then joining the Patreon is a way to do that. Our Patreon subscribers get access to our Discord, and that's like a kind of support group for people who are working on games. We have a bunch of helper features on there. We have like, people can take on roles to say, oh, I can help people with Godot, or I can help people with 3D art, or I can help people with Unreal, or I can help people with marketing. And it's sort of like a little kind of, I wouldn't say a classroom, because it's specifically aimed at people who are already making games. And one of the things about this channel when I set it up was I didn't want to churn out loads of like beginner level content about how to get into making games. I wanted this to be a channel that was about games already in progress, which is why, you know, a lot of game dev YouTube is one person making their games and talking about what they've learned as they do it, and then, you know, and that's fine. We need that as well, but this channel is very much your games are front and center, and we use those to talk about the issues that specific game has, and then the like wider relevance of that to other people's projects, because we can see, you know, an issue that happens in one game and we can say, okay, what other games does this apply to and stuff like that. I do work on my own projects on here sometimes as well, but that's not really the main focus of the channel. So we have the Patreon for that. It supports the channel going. It allows me to do this as basically a full-time job. That also supports things like the Game Developers Library, which is a monthly podcast reviewing books that game developers maybe should read, maybe should know about. We missed a month last month because I was moving house, but we're getting back on that soon. We just did Scott McCloud on comics, which is surprisingly relevant to video games. And next month we're doing, can't remember his first name, sorry, Sylvester, the guy that made RimWorld. We're reading his book next month. I know lots of viewers of this channel have already read that, because when I announced the podcast, it was like one of the most recommended books. So really looking forward to reading that. And I've read the first kind of 10 pages yesterday when I first got the book through the post, and already I'm kind of blown away by some of the way that Sylvester sort of describes what it means to make a game, or the kind of shortcuts to get to the parts of making a game that matter as quickly as possible as well. Really, really cool. So yeah, the Patreon provides this community for folks. You would not believe how much the level of discourse improves when you have a little bit of a barrier to entry compared to something like Reddit or a Facebook blog, where it's basically people posting the same thing every day. You know, obviously I'm going to say that because it kind of keeps the channel afloat and everything, but there's a reason why, you know, people like the content and they like the video essays I put out, and the Patreon supports that, but the Patreon also gives people access to that. I try not to paywall too much of what I do, because I don't want to effectively become a course seller who is like, give me all this money and you'll learn the secrets, because, you know, I've been a professional game developer for like 10 years of my life now, and I've been making games for a hobby for 30 years. And I like teaching, and I like hanging out with people and talking about their passions and their projects and stuff. I never wanted to make like a course or something like that, which was what I was encouraged to do when I started this channel. I had a friend who was like a social media expert who had done very well on YouTube, and he was like, well, what are you gonna sell if you don't sell a course? And I was like, I'll work something out. I'll work something out. And the thing that's good about Patreon is it means that if people just generally support the vibe of what we do here and what we're doing, then I don't have to play the algorithms game anymore. And you'll notice this across the whole like sector, right? Of like people doing content about games or games adjacent stuff. You know, like in the D&D space, in the tabletop role-playing game space, you'll have a Patreon that is making a healthy amount where the people who run it can like make a living off it. And then you look at their YouTube channel and it's only got like 5,000 subs or something. That community doesn't need to make content that makes the algorithm happy, because all it has to do is make the people who support the Patreon happy, which is a much smaller set of people, right? So if you ever wonder why game dev YouTube just seems to be everyone jumping on the same discourse topic, like make small games, or a lot of clickbait, or everyone analyzing the indie game that just came out, it's because they're trying to create the widest funnel possible, because they either are dependent on sponsorship placements, which I don't mind doing if I get a good one. I got Game Maker last year, and I'm more than happy to promote Game Maker because I love Game Maker and I like using it, and I think it's great and has a great community around it. But a lot of sponsorship offers you get are rubbish. They want you to basically lie. They want you to read a script pretending you've used a product that you've never used. It's like ridiculous. So I don't have to do that. But a lot of channels, it's like they either have to get enough views to make money off AdSense, which is like hundreds of thousands of views on a video to get anything close to a living wage just purely from AdSense without anything else. And the thing about being Patreon funded is it just gets rid of all of that. So you can have a viewer base and you can have like 10% of that viewer base pay for the thing. And they're subsidizing it for the 90% who can't. And, you know, I would never say, it's not about shaming the people that can't afford to pay for something. I always get people pop up and say, oh, I would love to support the channel, but I can't afford it at the moment. That's fine. 10% of the people who consume the thing can pay in, and that can help all the other people, and that's great. I don't really remember where I was going with this. What I was trying to do was do a call to action to get a few people to support the Patreon, because I'm really bad at doing that, and I always forget to do it at the end of a stream. I just ended up going on a massive ramble about about how the economics of content creation, but hopefully you find that interesting. I'm just seeing what Linz and Lucas said in the chat. Tinnen, yeah, thank you, Unicastle. Do games like We Were Here Together or Bread and Fred need something like a lobby system